So in class, in chapter 2.1, we had two major objectives in this section. Our objectives were, so our first objective was to find a line segment, actually the length of a line segment. So find length of a line segment in a coordinate system. And our second objective in the coordinate system was to find the midpoint. Now we have formulas for both of these objectives. For the length of a line, we use the distance formula, which is d is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. This is all under the square root symbol. And that gives us our distance, our length of a line segment in the coordinate system. Where x1 and x2 are points, right? So I have ordered pairs. I have x1 comma x or y1 as one ordered pair, and then I have an ordered pair of x2 comma y2, and so I have essentially 2 points. Now for my midpoint formula, to find the midpoint of a line segment, I just take x2 plus x1 and I divide it by 2. That's going to be my x position for my midpoint, and for the y position it's just y2 plus y1 divided by 2. So those are the two formulas we were using in chapter 2.1. Now we're going to apply them. So in an application problem, our first objective is to use the distance formula to find the length between 2 points. So we want to find the distance between 2 points, negative 2, 7 and negative 4, 11. Now I would like you to try to do this on your own, so please now pause the slide. So hit the pause button. Try to work this problem using the distance formula and see what you get. The answer should be, you should have gotten to square root of 5. Now there's two ways to work this problem. One is actually you can use a graphic method where you can plot the points on the coordinate system and then count along the y-axis and the x-axis and square those two numbers and add them together and then take the square root, which is the Pythagorean theorem. The other method, of course, is to just use the formula. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to use the formula this time around. So I write down the formula. In this case, d is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Now I'm going to pick my point 2 to be minus 4 comma 11, and my point 1 is going to be negative 2 comma 7. And now I'm just going to plug the information into my formula. So D is equal to, so for my point 2, my x2 is a -4, and I'm subtracting off a -2, and then I'm going to square that. And then I'm going to look at my y's. So my y2 is 11. And I'm subtracting off a 7. And then I square that. So there it is. So now I just have to do the calculations. So now I get a -4 minus 2. A minus 2, which becomes a -2 squared plus 4 squared. And so now I get D is equal to the square root of 4 plus 16. And this is equal to the square root of 20, but I can take a 4 out, and this gives me a 2 square root of 5. So that concludes our objective 1 for this point. Hopefully you followed through the methods, and you know how to do the distance between 2 points. So our objective 2 is to find the midpoint of a line in the xy plane. So this is problem 12 on page 203 of your book, and it says find the midpoint for the following line with the end points at -1, -3 and 3, -7. So again, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to find the midpoint for this particular problem, and when we come back we will go through the methods of doing it. So the answer you should have gotten for the midpoint for this particular problem was a 1, -5. And if you didn't get that, we'll go through the problem this time. So we're going to write the midpoint formula down. So midpoint, and we have x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That's the first position of our midpoint. And our second position of the midpoint is y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And so now we'll pick our points. I'll pick P1, which is point 1, is going to be a -1, -3. And my point 2 I'll write down as 3, -7. So now I have my midpoint to be, so it's going to be a -1 plus 3 divided by 2 for my x position. And for my y position, it's a -3 minus 7 divided by 2. And so now I get 2 over 2, and I get a -10 over 2. And so now I just have the point 1, -5. So there's our answer. So this concludes our objectives for section 2-1. Please review some of the problems and make sure you've done the problem of the day, and we'll see how that works for you. Thank you.